Why did the wildfires in Maui kill so many people? You know, for the number of wildfires burning around the world this year alone, it is unusual to have this many people die. It is the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history, and not only are those numbers constantly changing, going up.
And now to that breaking news happening in Hawaii. Fires continue to tear through Maui tonight. At least 6 people have been killed.
This morning we're learning, as we mentioned off the top, 36 people have died.
Just minutes ago, officials updated that death toll to 67.
The death toll from those catastrophic wildfires is now at 80.
There are now at least 96 people confirmed dead after last week's massive wildfires in Maui.
And the best guess right now is that the official death count is going to continue shooting up dramatically.
We are seeing loss of life here. As you know, the number has been rising, and we will continue to see loss of life.
Over the weekend, Maui's police chief said they had been through just 3% of the search area. That's because they've been primarily focused on 2 things: containing the fires and caring for those who escaped. But it means there are potentially many more victims to find. It is both painful and meticulous work.
When we find these, you know, our family and our friends, the remains we're finding is through a fire that melted metal. We have to do rapid DNA to identify them. Every one of these 89 are John and Jane Does. So when we pick up the remains and they fall apart, and so when you have 200 people running through the scene yesterday, and some of you, that's what you're stepping on. I don't know how much more you want me to describe it. That's what you're stepping on.
The experience was horrific. There was no warnings.
This fire was so deadly because people were caught off guard.
Just from our parking stall to the entrance of our apartment complex, it went from blue skies to gray to black. And all we seen was embers from fire that we had no idea what's going on. There was no siren, nothing. And I mean, it was just heartbreaking seeing our community, my neighbors, like lots of elderly people trying to make it down the stairs just to get into their car.
We've heard again and again from survivors there was little to no warning, and that it wasn't until the smoke, the ash, the embers, and the flames themselves were already upon them did they realize just how immediately threatening the situation was.
Like, we have sirens that go off once a month. There was no siren warnings. There was no evacuation, even on our phones, because we didn't have power lines and all the connections. So there was no warning whatsoever, but my mango tree is what saved my life. My mango tree fell down in between the house, and I was asleep on my bed, and I didn't wake up, and my neighbor woke me up, and in a matter of seconds, my house filled up with smoke, and it was just, the fire was so fast. It was like a matter of seconds, everything. It was, you know, traffic everywhere and smoke everywhere, and it was so dark and just roaring, and everybody's just scrambling, and people are standing out of their houses, and it was just horrific. It was just so fast.
Warning sirens on Maui are tested every month. There are about 80 of them dotting the island, intended to warn people of disaster. There's a specific sound for tsunamis, even one for nuclear attacks. And I should say, they're really loud. Like, when they're going, you can hear them a kilometer away. But a spokesperson from Hawaii's emergency management agency confirmed not one went off during last week's chaos.
We certainly weren't hearing any sirens or being warned in any sort of way that there was something this large happening. I'm told that we were sent texts. However, we didn't have cell service for at least a couple hours at this point. I want to say most of the island on the west side had lost cell service around the noon, 1 o'clock. So by the time that the storms were really hitting around 4 o'clock, no one had any service. So no one had any idea what was going on.
So why didn't the sirens go off? Why the reliance on phone alerts and emergency broadcasts when power poles were down?
We didn't know how bad it was going to get. Since the power lines were down, we didn't have a lot of communication, so getting out of there was spotty. It was hard to understand the gravity of what was happening. We're in our house up until the fire was almost on top of us.
Communications infrastructure was literally melting away.
Anything that was on the ground that assisted in getting any kind of communication has been burned or partially burned or destroyed.
Wouldn't any kind of warning have been useful, even one as broad and maybe vague as a siren?
Generally speaking, we do not have sirens for fires. Okay. I don't know if anybody in any other state does. The sirens tell you to go in and turn on your television and listen to the news reports. It's usually for tsunami warnings and hurricanes. We don't want people, if there's a fire, going back into their home and turning on their TV. We'd rather they take evasive action. So I think there's a lot of talk about people maybe misunderstanding the purpose.
What the mayor says is at least partly true, that the sirens are usually taken as a cue to seek out more information. But on the question of whether emergency officials should have used every tool at their disposal, the state's attorney general is now investigating.
I immediately told my roommates, I said, hey, this looks pretty serious. Maybe we should start packing bags, thinking about leaving. And within 15 minutes of talking about that and seeing the smoke, we were running down into our cars with as anything we could grab, go bags, mostly nothing. I got my passport, my dog, and my truck, and we were peeling out of the driveway. The whole street of Wainehe was starting to catch on fire. There wasn't really an evacuation notice for us. It was more, we realized that the town and our street looked like it was going to burn. It happened so unbelievably quickly that it was really difficult and really scary.
Undeniably, the fire moved faster than anyone expected and than anyone was prepared to deal with. The governor, Josh Green, said it moved a mile a minute. That's highway driving speed. Like, imagine flames whipped up by 100-kilometer-an-hour gusts of wind traveling just as fast on the ground.
What they witnessed was basically horizontal fire, and fire traveling across roadways in between houses that was solid.
According to the Maui County Fire Chief, they were outpaced, outmatched. Their own vehicles were catching fire, at least 2 engines completely burned and a third needing repairs. Until a certain point when firefighters had no choice but to just get out of the way. And according to the New York Times, they even ran out of water. As homes burned, pipes were melting, depressurizing the network. Water was essentially leaking. The lack of pressure combined with the strong wind meant even if you had a fully functioning fire truck, at a certain point, all you were spraying was mist.
Aloha, Hawaii. Behind me, you can see the devastation here in Lahaina. We're on Front Street. I just walked the entirety of this road with Senator Schatz and Mayor Bisson. It's extraordinary. It is tragically gone.
When Hawaii's governor called the state of Lahaina utter devastation, he wasn't exaggerating. It's all gone. Homes, businesses, landmarks, livelihoods, and people. There are still at least hundreds missing, maybe more than 1,000 who loved ones still haven't been able to contact.
So just understand what this thing is, because none of us really know the size of it yet. Everybody wants a number.
There are some numbers we do know. Well over 2,000 buildings destroyed, almost $6 billion US in damage. Recovery will take years. And even if the very worst is over, fires are still burning. Communication is still crippled. Infrastructure down indefinitely. For what may very well be the largest natural disaster in Hawaii's state history.